listeners, and welcome back to Everyday Health Stories, the podcast where we explore the fascinating world of medical science through the power of storytelling. Each episode uncovers real-life health challenges and groundbreaking discoveries that could change the way we think about our well-being. If this is your first time joining us, hit pause for a moment and click on follow or subscribe, depending on where you're listening. That way, you'll get notified of new episodes, gain access to exclusive content, and join a community that's making positive changes, one story at a time. Dr. Reddy, I know you've been eager to talk about today's topic because it could completely shift the way we think about protecting our brains. So let's set the stage. What are we discussing today?
That's right, Anna. Today we're diving into something fascinating, something that might hold the key to protecting our brains from one of the most feared diseases of our time, Alzheimer's. Imagine this. What if sitting in a sauna could reduce your risk of dementia? What if heat itself could be a form of therapy for the brain?
That sounds almost too good to be true. But there's real science behind this, isn't there?
Yes, there is. There's a growing body of research, especially from Finland, showing that frequent sauna use can significantly lower the risk of dementia. And there's even a remarkable case of a man whose genes predicted he would develop early-onset Alzheimer's. Yet at 75, his brain is completely intact. Scientists believe they've uncovered the reason why, and it all comes down to heat exposure and heat shock proteins.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. But before we dive into the science of heat exposure and heat shock proteins, I want to hear more about that fascinating case you mentioned, a man whose genes practically guaranteed he would develop early-onset Alzheimer's, yet he remains completely dementia-free at 75. Can you tell us more about his story?
Absolutely. This is the case of Doug Whitney, a man who, by all medical expectations, should have developed Alzheimer's nearly 2 decades ago. Doug carries a rare mutation in the presenilin 2 gene. This mutation has caused nearly every member of his family to develop Alzheimer's by their early 50s. His mother, uncles, and even distant relatives all followed the same tragic pattern.
That's heartbreaking. So how is Doug different? What's protecting him?
That's the million-dollar question. Scientists have been studying him for years, and what they've found is remarkable. Despite having the same presenilin 2 mutation as his relatives, Doug has not developed cognitive impairment, even 18 years beyond his expected age of onset. His brain scans do show beta amyloid plaque buildup, which we often associate with Alzheimer's, but what's surprising is that his tau protein accumulation is minimal. This is key because research now suggests that it's not just amyloid plaques, but rather tau protein spreading that drives neurodegeneration in Alzheimer's patients.
So if tau buildup is what really causes the disease to progress, then something in Doug's brain is preventing it from accumulating?
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting. Scientists have identified a unique factor in Doug's life that could be playing a major role in his protection, his long-term exposure to extreme heat. Doug worked for years as a naval mechanic, often in boiling hot engine rooms with temperatures reaching extreme levels. Researchers now suspect that this chronic heat exposure may have triggered an adaptive response in his body, specifically through the upregulation of heat shock proteins.
Wait, so you're saying that being exposed to high heat for prolonged periods might have actually trained his body to protect his brain?
That's one of the leading hypotheses. His case was studied in depth through genetic sequencing, neuroimaging, and biomarker analysis, and one thing stood out. He had an overrepresentation of heat shock proteins in his system. Heat shock proteins are a type of cellular defense mechanism. They help stabilize and refold damaged proteins, reduce inflammation, and may even prevent tau proteins from spreading. Essentially, these proteins act like cellular repair crews, protecting the brain from the very damage that leads to Alzheimer's.
That's an incredible discovery. So does this mean that regular heat exposure, like using a sauna, could trigger these same protective mechanisms?
That's exactly what researchers are exploring now. And Finland, where sauna use is a deeply ingrained cultural practice, is providing some of the strongest evidence yet that heat exposure can have long-term protective effects on brain health.
Dr. Reddy, this whole idea that heat exposure could play a role in brain health is fascinating. But before we get deeper into the science, can you explain what actually happens in the brain when someone develops Alzheimer's?
Of course. Alzheimer's disease is a progressive neurodegenerative condition that affects memory, thinking, and eventually the ability to carry out daily tasks. For a long time, the main theory behind Alzheimer's was that it was caused by the buildup of beta amyloid plaques, the sticky clumps of protein that accumulate in the brain. But recent research, including Doug Whitney's case, suggests that amyloid alone may not be the main driver of cognitive decline.
Right, because Doug has amyloid buildup in his brain, but he's still functioning normally. So, what's actually causing the brain to deteriorate in Alzheimer's?
That's where tau proteins come into the picture. Tau is another protein in the brain, and under normal circumstances, it helps stabilize neurons. But in Alzheimer's, tau starts to misfold and spread like a wildfire, leading to tangled clumps that disrupt brain function. The more tau spreads, the more neurons get damaged and die, causing memory loss, confusion, and eventually full-blown dementia.
So, it's really tau that's doing the damage?
Yes, that's why scientists are shifting their focus. The real problem isn't just amyloid plaques, but how tau spreads. And that brings us to a fascinating line of research: heat shock proteins.
All right, let's talk about these heat shock proteins. What exactly are they?
Heat shock proteins, or HSPs, are a special group of cellular defense proteins that get activated when the body is under stress, especially heat stress. Their main job is to protect cells by preventing proteins from misfolding, which is exactly what happens with tau in Alzheimer's.
That sounds like a built-in repair system for the brain.
It is. When the body experiences heat, whether from a sauna, exercise, or high-temperature work environments like Doug's, it triggers the production of heat shock proteins. These proteins help refold damaged proteins, clear out toxic waste, and reduce inflammation in the brain. What's really exciting is that some studies suggest heat shock proteins can actually block tau from misfolding and spreading.
That's amazing. So, heat exposure isn't just helping the body cool down, it's actually training the brain's defense system.
That's exactly right. Think of heat shock proteins as bodyguards for your neurons. They step in to keep proteins like tau from clumping together, which could be one reason why Doug Whitney, who was exposed to extreme heat for years, has been protected from Alzheimer's.
And that brings us to the big question. Can we get the same brain-protecting effects by using saunas? We know there's an actual large-scale research showing that sauna use can help reduce the risk of dementia. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, and the best research on this comes from Finland, a country where sauna bathing is a cultural tradition and a regular part of daily life. In Finland, it's not uncommon for people to use a sauna 4 to 7 times per week, and researchers have been studying the long-term health effects of this practice. One of the most impressive studies was conducted over a span of 39 years, tracking nearly 14,000 participants.
That's a huge study. And what did they find?
The results were astonishing. People who used a sauna at least 4 to 7 times per week had a 50% lower risk of developing dementia compared to those who rarely used a sauna. Even those who used a sauna just twice a week had a noticeable reduction in their risk. This study was one of the first to show that regular heat exposure might have long-term protective effects on brain health.
That's incredible. So what is it about sauna use that's actually providing these benefits?
It comes down to a few key mechanisms. First, as we discussed earlier, sauna use triggers the release of heat shock proteins, which help prevent tau proteins from misfolding and spreading in the brain. But that's not all. Sauna use also improves cardiovascular health, increases circulation, and reduces inflammation, all of which are major contributors to neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's.
So it's almost like a workout for the brain?
That's a great way to put it. In fact, sauna use has been compared to moderate intensity exercise because it increases heart rate, improves oxygen flow to the brain, and helps remove toxins. Some researchers even call it passive cardio because it mimics many of the benefits of aerobic exercise without having to move a muscle.
That's fascinating. So if someone can't exercise due to injury or age, using a sauna could still help them get similar benefits?
Exactly. This makes it a great option for older adults or people with mobility issues. Regular sauna use reduces inflammation, helps regulate blood pressure, and promotes better sleep, all of which contribute to long-term brain health.
Wow. So we have personal cases like Doug Whitney's, and now we have large-scale research from Finland showing that heat exposure could be a real game changer for brain health. But that brings us to an important question. What's the best way to incorporate this into our routine? And how often should someone use a sauna to actually get these brain-protecting benefits?
That's a great question, Anna. Based on research, including the Finnish study, there's a specific way to maximize the brain benefits of sauna use. The ideal temperature is somewhere between 174 to 185 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 79 to 85 degrees Celsius. This range is optimal for triggering the release of heat shock proteins, which, as we discussed earlier, play a key role in preventing tau buildup and protecting brain cells. But temperature alone isn't enough. The duration matters too. Studies suggest that staying in the sauna for at least 20 minutes per session is where the real benefits start to show. Anything shorter may not be enough to stimulate the protective response in the brain. Then there's frequency. The biggest reduction in dementia risk was seen in people who used a sauna 4 to 7 times per week. That might sound like a lot, but in Finland, it's a regular part of daily life. Even if you can't commit to that, just 2 to 3 sessions per week can still provide noticeable benefits. And of course, hydration is essential. Sauna use can cause significant sweating, so it's important to drink plenty of water before and after to avoid dehydration. One more thing, while heat is beneficial, more is not always better. Extreme temperatures above 200 degrees Fahrenheit or around 93 degrees Celsius may actually increase stress on the body rather than providing benefits, so it's best to keep it within a safe range.
That's really helpful. Now, I know some people may not have access to a sauna. Are there other ways they can get similar benefits?
Yes, absolutely. If a sauna isn't available, there are other forms of heat therapy that can still activate heat shock proteins. Taking a hot bath at around 104 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius for about 20 minutes can provide similar benefits by raising the core body temperature and triggering the body's protective mechanisms. Steam rooms can also be an alternative, though they operate differently than dry saunas. That being said, saunas remain the most well-researched and effective method for brain health.
That's really encouraging. So even if someone doesn't have a sauna at home, they can still incorporate heat therapy into their routine in other ways. But Dr. Reddy, you mentioned that the advantages go beyond just dementia prevention. What else can regular sauna sessions do for overall health?
Sauna use has some remarkable effects on the body. One of the biggest benefits, aside from brain health, is its impact on the cardiovascular system. Sitting in a sauna might seem passive, but it actually mimics the effects of moderate intensity exercise. When you're in a sauna, your heart rate increases, your blood vessels expand, and circulation improves. Over time, this helps lower blood pressure and reduces the risk of heart disease. In fact, studies have shown that people who use a sauna 4 to 7 times per week have up to a 50% lower risk of fatal heart disease and stroke compared to those who rarely use one.
That's incredible. So just sitting in the sauna is like getting a mini workout for the heart?
Yes, and beyond heart health, sauna use also plays a powerful role in reducing inflammation, which is at the root of many chronic diseases. When you expose your body to heat, it triggers an anti-inflammatory response, helping to lower markers of inflammation in the blood. This can be beneficial for people dealing with conditions like arthritis, autoimmune diseases, and even metabolic disorders like type 2 diabetes. Studies have also shown that regular sauna use can improve insulin sensitivity, which helps regulate blood sugar levels.
That's a huge benefit, especially with so many people struggling with metabolic issues today. What about recovery and muscle health? I've heard that some athletes swear by sauna use after workouts.
That's true. Many professional athletes use saunas as part of their recovery routine because heat exposure helps muscles repair faster. When you use a sauna after exercise, it increases blood flow to tired muscles, helps flush out metabolic waste products like lactic acid, and reduces muscle soreness. Some studies even suggest that sauna use can stimulate growth hormone production, which plays a key role in muscle repair and overall recovery.
So whether someone is looking to protect their brain, support their heart, or even speed up workout recovery, sauna use seems like an all-around powerful tool for health.
It really is. And one more thing, sauna use has also been linked to improved sleep. After a sauna session, your core body temperature gradually drops, which signals to the body that it's time to rest. This can lead to deeper, more restorative sleep, which in turn supports brain function, metabolism, and overall well-being.
Wow, the benefits just keep stacking up. So we've covered brain health, heart health, inflammation, muscle recovery, and even sleep. With all these benefits, it sounds like sauna use should be a regular part of a healthy lifestyle. But before we wrap up, what's your final takeaway for our listeners?
I would say this: if you're looking for a simple, natural way to protect your brain, support your heart, and enhance your overall well-being, sauna use is one of the best habits you can incorporate into your lifestyle. The research is clear. Regular heat exposure, especially 4 to 7 times a week for at least 20 minutes, can significantly lower your risk of dementia, improve circulation, reduce inflammation, and even promote better sleep. It's a powerful, yet underutilized tool for long-term health.
That's a great takeaway. And for those who don't have access to a sauna, you mentioned that hot baths and other forms of heat therapy can still provide benefits, right?
Yes, that's right. While a traditional sauna is ideal, hot baths, steam rooms, and other forms of passive heat exposure can also help trigger similar protective responses in the body. The key is consistency. Regular exposure to heat stress trains your body to build resilience over time.
That's great advice. Well, thank you, Dr. Reddy, for sharing this incredible research and practical tips with us today. And to our listeners, if you found this episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone who might benefit from this information. You never know. It might just help someone protect their brain health in the years to come.
Thank you all for tuning in. As always, this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not replace professional medical advice. If you're considering incorporating sauna therapy or any other health intervention into your routine, or if you have any medical concerns, always consult with your healthcare provider to ensure it's safe and appropriate for you.
Absolutely. Until next time, stay healthy, stay curious, and keep listening to our podcast. Remember, every story has the power to transform lives. Bye for now.